Hello here and welcome again to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, as we are 1 week away, boys.
Well, we're in the thick of it.
We are. This is the show before the show. And we will be a little bit different schedule next week.
Okay.
Because the game's Thursday. So, I mean, it does throw off our week, but we are going to have two shows next week. So this week, standard business on the Husker Online channel. We'll have this show like we always do, and then headlines will run Friday like it always does. But next week, it's going to be a Monday, Tuesday sandwich to get you out to Minneapolis on Wednesday. And hopefully, if you're driving out there, we'll carry 2 hours of your drive out to Minneapolis.
Yeah, 2 entertaining hours. I mean, we have so much to talk about. It's almost incredible.
But yeah, let's start.
I'm serious about that.
We like to call it opening headlines. Opening headline here of the Husker Online show, not football related. Nebraska President Ted Carter, System President Ted Carter, announced that he has accepted the president position at the University of Ohio State, the Ohio State University. He will be at Nebraska until December 31st. On the surface, guys, this is a big blow. The timing of it, number one, the second day the semester opens up for business, he makes this announcement that gets made. Number two, a lot of things were moved around to cater to Ted Carter. He was, he's now overseeing athletics at Nebraska, where the athletic director, from what we know, for the first time ever, reports to the president, not the chancellor. And then Ted Carter has the seat on the Council of Chancellors and Presidents, which has always gone to the campus chancellor. Now it was going to be Ted Carter. Well, in a few months, none of that stuff matters now. And there's a lot of questions going forward. The future of the leadership. We know Matt Rule definitely was disappointed with this. We heard Governor Jim Pillen express his disappointment. I think a lot of people were caught off guard by this.
Caught off guard. I will not downplay the significance of the story. I am, however, taken aback by the doomsday tone that accompanies this discussion. I don't share in it. All those things that you mentioned, that the restructuring, that's not necessarily out the window. They've had 2 straight presidents now that were, I mean, they were capable leaders in the sports arena. I don't want my president of the university to be the AD. I think that you can go find, is there something that stops Nebraska from getting someone that's better than Ted Carter? I mean, no. I don't think this has to be. What I hear is this doomsday-oriented discussion. I don't share in it. I don't think it has to be. So what did Ted Carter? He hired He hired Matt Rule, in effect. I mean, he played a large role in it. But I can't name a lot of things that Ted Carter did. He started here in the fall of 2019.
All right. So I think when you talk about that doomsday reaction, it's because massive turnover like this at the highest levels of Nebraska become commonplace, where now you've replaced a president, a chancellor, an athletic director, and a head football coach since 2001. And for a program that is one of the biggest issues is stability and cohesiveness at the highest levels, that's a problem.
Ted Carter's not.
You're constantly a revolving door at the most important positions within your university and athletic department.
He's not in the athletic department.
Well, he basically was. He was Trev's boss.
Yeah, and how many presidents at other major Power 5 schools had the sports columnists like you and Tom Chattel sitting in his office?
We just needed some summer content
for hour-plus interviews. Like, I mean, you kind of helped create this. I mean, you did this glowing sit down with Ted Carter. Tom Chattel did a few.
Right.
I mean, he got as much.
We were hurting for content at that time.
He got as much press as any president because the sports media was covering like a sports figure.
There's no doubt that, I mean, Ted Carter had a sports background, and the story's the story. They did restructure, so Trev would report to him. What I'm suggesting is they'll hire a president, and Trev will report to that president. Could be better.
Could be
it doesn't
worse.
have to be. Could be. It doesn't have to be. Now, I've always been an advocate of, I think a football program is better off if the president, the chancellor, the AD, and the coach are aligned. I've always said that. We've seen it to the contrary here, but I don't know that they can't have that just because I don't necessarily see Ted Carter as the end all be all president.
I think the issue is that they had that, and now they're disrupting it, where now you replace it. You have a brand new chancellor. You're going to have a brand new president with a first-year head coach. How can you say that they're all going to be in line when they've never even been in the same room together?
Well,
that's the problem.
I see, now that's where we tend to disagree. I don't necessarily say it's a problem until it is a problem.
And the fact that we're doing it on August 22nd.
Once again, I'm hesitant to say it's a problem until I see it's a problem.
Well, like, who will Trev report to? I mean, they made it.
So why are we worried about it?
Because who's going to hold the athletic director accountable?
Somebody will.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not. They've already established it's not Rodney Bennett.
If Trev left, I could see the doomsday sort of tone. That would be bad. He's the direct supervisor of Matt Rule. I would challenge you guys to tell me this. How does Ted Carter leaving affect on-field play at all? I mean, in any sense.
Because you had an advocate who understood football making the most important decisions from the university standpoint.
I watched Matt Rule at the Embassy Suites when we were there in May.
You haven't answered my question.
Praise Admiral Carter. Admiral Carter. He spoke so highly about, like the importance of him in this whole thing. I mean, they've invested so much money into Matt Rule, and Ted Carter was a big piece of getting that here.
If Rule wins, we're not talking.
No, I don't disagree
at all.
It's just the feeling that this Nebraska job, all it was for Ted Carter was a stepping stone. And that's a gut punch if you're a Nebraska fan. Like, you felt like you had this guy. You've given him opportunities. He's doing sit-down interviews with sports columnists and getting all this praise for the job he's doing. And all of a sudden, I'm out of here.
I don't feel the gut punch.
I mean, the governor sure did.
There's people that do. I know there are. There are people who don't, though. I mean, trust me, I talk to them. And they're saying to me, what is the hysteria about? What am I missing?
It's not hysteria. I think it's more of a cumulative thing, again, where once again, Nebraska's leadership is unknown right now, where you're going into the fall semester and you have no idea your president's going to be on January 1.
And why would you move around all these things? If Ted Carter was thinking about leaving, why did they go out of their way to restructure leadership, to put him on the
Hold on. He was one. There's 100 candidates for that job. All right. He didn't know he was going to get it. Are you suggesting that Ted Carter shouldn't apply for other jobs?
Well, if they just did all those things for him, in his mind, he's like, I'll do this, but I'm applying for Ohio State still.
Seems like an American thing to do. He's trying to move up late in his career.
Yeah. I'm not going to fault him. It's a better job.
It's a better job.
But from a Nebraska standpoint, to say that it's not a big blow, I think, is dismissing the situation to where he is one of the most important figures. And you can say he's not affiliated with the athletic department, but he has a heavy hand in the athletic department.
It is a big story.
And so just the immediate reaction, I don't think is maybe in some degree overblown, but you can't dismiss it and say it's not a big deal.
Not doing that.
It just adds to the dysfunction that we've seen the last 20 years.
Yes, that's kind of my bigger point.
I don't see the dysfunction. I don't see that they've
replaced their entire leadership since 2021.
It's a big story, but it doesn't necessarily mean, oh God, this thing's doomed to failure in the immediate or the long term. I don't understand why we're assuming that. I'm not. I think that Matt Rule,
we're doomed to failure. I'm saying it's a blow.
I'm not even gonna go that far.
Well,
I don't know that. It depends. Now you might be able to convince me of that on when the next hire is made. If we judge it to be a substandard.
We've seen what happens when the leadership is not in line with the Nebraska football program. How much dysfunction that causes.
Right. But
you've seen it firsthand.
Oh, I know.
And now that is back in play. Whereas before, you are directly in line. Head coach, athletic director, president, all 100% in line with the same vision. Now you have the potential to disrupt that.
There's no doubt. I thought that Matt Rule did. I mean, he said he said the words, "I'm obviously disappointed." You listened to the radio show, Robin. I felt that he was disappointed.
Trev has to be disappointed. I mean,
Trev has to be a leader.
Ted Carter was his advocate that helped get him this position.
Trev can't worry about it. He's
got to do his job.
Yeah, he's got to lead, and his job. I don't know that it's any more. I mean, I'm even hesitant to say it's more important now. It was important. And Matt Rule made that clear. He literally said, what did he say, Rob? I just thank God for Trev Alberts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Matt feels support. There's no doubt that, I don't know that Rule would be here without Ted Carter. There's that. But before I kind of laud Ted Carter for the hire of Matt Rule, I'd like to see Matt Rule win a game or two. If he's 0-6, what are we talking about Ted Carter then?
Yeah. So when you're gauging the immediate reaction, though, there's been so much optimism and goodwill that has been rebuilt over the last 8 months.
True.
And now that kind of disorients that a little bit.
And okay, I'll go with disorients it a little bit. I'll go with that.
Guys, there are rough waters ahead for the university. There's a budget deficit of $40 to $50 million that has to get made up. So Rodney Bennett and now this new president after Ted Carter, they're walking into a mess.
When I think of a president, that's what I think of. I don't think of Ted Carter standing on the sideline at Minnesota with his arms crossed, looking over at Rule and saying, okay, what do you got here, big boy? That's the way this is being portrayed. It's almost being portrayed like the athletic director left.
Well, the PR that he got, he puts on hockey skates and skates at UNO hockey practice. He's doing sit downs with you guys. He's inviting you to come in his office.
That was probably a reason for that.
And to have someone that's that sports minded, football minded on the university side, for the football team to do everything that they want to do and these big visions for the future of Matt Rule, having Ted Carter in place, who was a top advocate for everything they wanted to do, I think was important. Now you don't know what you're going to get in that position.
His presence in 2019, starting in 2019, didn't equate into basketball wins or football wins. That's where I'm coming from.
It equated into hiring a football coach
who hasn't won a game yet.
Okay.
All right.
Hasn't played a game.
All right. When we come back, we're going to shift back to fall camp. We'll talk offensive storylines here as we edge into game week. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, coming off a very spirited Ted Carter debate as we segue into offensive storylines. But before we do that, this segment of the show brought to you by Homefield. Homefield is a premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis. They emphasize their commitment to creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. They feature a growing collection of over 150 plus colleges to choose from, including, of course, Nebraska. Homefield designs are super unique because they delve into the archives and the history of each school using unique logos, mascots, and iconic moments to create thoughtfully designed apparel. They are all about authenticity and nostalgia. Check it out. I know everyone likes to kind of refresh their gear, get updated stuff for the season. Great time to check it out at Homefield. I'm telling you guys, give it a look at their Nebraska gear. You can find it at homefieldapparel.com to see all of their selection of colleges, including Nebraska. Our listeners will receive 15% off their first order with promo code Huskers23. It's the perfect apparel to get you ready for the season. So check them out. Homefield.com, promo code Huskers23. All right, guys, let's get into the discussion here with fall camp. And not a lot to hit on in quarterback. We know Jeff Sims is your number one guy.
Slip of the tongue.
Casey's back. If Casey is still here, I think you'd be arguing me that he deserves a look for the job still.
Have another spirited debate.
Gloves would come off.
You went down with the ship on Casey.
I did not go down with the ship. Go ahead.
But Chubba, do we all agree Chubba is your number two?
Yeah, I think if it came down to a long-term situation, like if, God forbid, Jeff Sims misses significant time, multiple games, I think Chubba's the guy. Because I think he's gotten more that you can game plan around because he's a better passer. If it's situational,
right,
and they're in a thing where you're just trying to hold on for a win or whatever it is, I think Harburg probably gets more of a look, just because I think he's probably a more physical, bigger, stronger, maybe faster runner.
So you're not buying the Matt Rule number 2 talk.
Well, again, I think it depends. It all depends on the
situational
time, place, situation.
Number 2s.
I think Harburg, though, will have a role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like he can do other things. I mean, we know he can catch. We know he can run. We know he's physical. So there's potential with Heinrich Haarberg.
I wonder, I know this. If I was his trainer or his father, Heinrich Haarberg, and I heard Sean say, we know he can catch, I'd say, whoa, he's a quarterback. I mean, they're not making Trey Lance catch, I don't think, at San Francisco.
Not
right?
yet.
I don't think they will. That's what I'm saying. I would cringe. If I hope Heinrich Haarberg kind of cringes. I doubt he does. But a quarterback's a quarterback, especially in a developing quarterback. All those reps you take at receiver, all you're doing is sort of slowing your growth at quarterback. If I were Haarberg right now as a young quarterback, I'd say I'm a quarterback. I don't need to be catching passes.
Yeah, but I think one of the reasons why he is in this position is because of his versatility.
True.
The fact that he has as much dual threat ability. Well, maybe not as much as Sims, but I mean, he has that element to him to where you can do different things. You can not just gadget plays, but you can scheme around that too, to where if you run a QB lead or something like that, he can do that. While also being able to be a functional passer.
Will Heinrich Haarberg see a snap or two or a few plays at Minnesota in a different role?
Oh, I guess I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it. Now watch, it'll go for 70.
Well, but then you hear Rule say, we used to say at Penn State when they ran gadgetry plays that, they had to do that because they're not good enough to beat us straight up.
Right. Well, that's a good question. Is Nebraska good enough to beat Minnesota straight up?
They haven't been in a while.
4-1, PJ. PJ Flex 4-1.
Okay, running back. We learned this week Gabe Ervin Jr. is on the one line. Ramir Johnson is kind of the one line third down back. We learned Anthony Grant had 2 fumbles in the scrimmage on Saturday. There's just some detail things and other things behind the scenes with Anthony that have delayed him. But nobody can deny his talent and his ability as a pure runner. But clearly there are other things, including the fumbles, that have put Anthony Grant almost in a third-team role.
Yeah. I mean, Matt Rule said the words. He's a good running back. He's proven himself as a runner. He ran through 915 yards last year, but we can't play guys who put the ball on the ground. He said that. Called him out, which is he's 24, Anthony Grant. This discussion to me is a little age. There's an age component to it. If he was
some true freshman that's just getting thrown in the fire.
When a guy gets to 24, that's an NFL age.
You're an adult.
Yeah. So
yeah.
What do you think, Rob?
Go back and listen to EJ Barthel and talk about what's going to separate that running back room. The first word he says is dependability. And I take that to mean not just what you're doing on the field, taking care of the football, doing what you're supposed to do, but doing everything you're supposed to be doing off the field. Whether that's classes or showing up on time or whatever it means, like that, I think was as much of a separator as anything in this deal to where the skill set component, like you can make a case for either Irvin or Grant as the number one, and you're not going to be wrong. But I think when it comes down to the day-to-day, being dependable, being reliable, and being someone the coaches can trust, that's probably as much of a separator as anything.
I think so.
And in Matt Rule's world, when he says be there at a certain time for any player, it means be there early.
It's Tom Coughlin time right there.
Okay.
He made that comment. He goes, guys think that if they show up at 8:03, when I say 8, it's 8-ish.
On time-ish, yeah.
On time. That's
clearly.
late. All right, wide receiver. I think the big question, guys, I mean, there's a lot there, but Marcus Washington, will we see him play at Minnesota? We know he returned limitedly, at least this week. But you look at that group, it's basically 4 transfer veterans, 2 in-state walk-ons, and then 6 freshmen. That's the receiver pool right now. And I know you are very opinionated that, number one, there's not a true number one in that group. You don't look at Billy Kemp as a number one.
Well, he is a number one, but is that what your number one? Is that what you want your number one to be? Would he be your number one at a top 25 school? He's a good player. I don't like this. It always sort of sounds like I'm bashing Billy Kemp. I'm not. He's tough. He's a tough kid. He's got to catch a lot of passes. He's number one in that sense, but he's not a field stretching 6'2".
Look at the number ones
Xavier
around the conference right now.
Yeah.
They look different.
Harrison.
They're built different.
Yeah.
And
That's all I'm saying.
I get it. And so that's where the rest of that room becomes a huge question, to where Marcus Washington was supposed to be that next number 2. We don't even know if he's going to be available or how much he'll be available. And then you have Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, who quit the team last year.
5 catches, quit the team.
And now he's back, and he's going to be one of your projected top 3. After that, you're talking about 2 guys that started the year as walk-ons, and then a bunch of true freshmen, and then a first-year transfer in Josh Fleek. So there are so many unknowns in that group, and we put out our projected depth chart here today on Wednesday, and we had to do a whole other section of others to watch with that true freshman group, just because you could make a case for all 3 of those guys, Malachi Coleman, Jaden Doss, Jalen Lloyd, to factor in at any one of those spots. We just don't know enough about where exactly they stack up.
Will they make the line, as Matt Rule refers
Yes.
to? Yeah, the line. And we'll know Friday. There's going to be a depth chart Friday, and Matt Rule joked about he's never been asked more about the depth chart in his career than at Nebraska. Well, welcome to Nebraska, Coach, where 50 people interview the left guard after practice.
Fullback.
Yeah, the receiver discussion is interesting. Now, what you hear that's the most interesting to me is about Alex Bullock, where, Rob, again, we were listening to the radio last night, and Matt Rule said that when Matt Rule got to campus, Casey Thompson was still here, and Casey Thompson pointed to Alex Bullock and said, that right there is our best route runner, Alex Bullock, or he's a great route runner. What did Fedoni say? He's one of the best route runners I've ever seen. They really like him. Now, can he get open in Big Ten games? That's the bottom line. So, I mean, I think there's some potential in that group. You just like to see, other than Kemp's, some guys that are much more proven. Bullock and Castaneda had a combined 5 receptions last year. I mean, Bullock didn't have any. So that's your 2 and 3 guys.
Is there a game changer in that group? That's what we don't know.
It's Kemp.
I think you got a lot of dependable guys. Who's the game changer?
I mean, Kemp's 2 best years at Virginia would rank number 2 all time for receptions at Nebraska.
But when you talk about
That's
game
volume.
changer, that's volume.
Well, they need that.
I know, but you
But
also
we're
need
talking
guys that
about
can take the
game
lid
changer.
off and change a game. That's what, when the bets discussion we had a week or 2 ago, that's what bets brought.
When I hear game changer, I don't hear possession receiver. I hear take the top off. I hear Palmer.
The guy that can go win a 50-50 ball on the sideline against a top corner.
Yeah.
Maybe they have that. We don't know.
They might.
Maybe Fedoni can give some of that.
Yep.
All right. When we come back, we'll talk defensive storylines in camp. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett talking now defensive storylines in fall camp. But before we get to that, the show and segment brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. You're busy right now. You got a lot on your plate, kids back in school, activities in full swing. Whether you're just dealing with decisions and around your career or relationships, therapy can help you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice, the easier it gets. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out the brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy map you, be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Husker to receive 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/Husker. Again, this episode brought to you by BetterHelp. All right, guys, let's get into the defensive storyline discussion here. And, that we kind of have a pretty good feel, I think, like who the 11 are, who the black shirts are probably going to be. They're going to give out black shirts, we think, by week's end. But is there anything just on that defensive front, that line, that really jumps out to you right now?
Okay, well, before we get to, I'll tell you what jumps out to me. What really jumps out, and I've been doing this since 1962, so I've seen a lot of colleges. What I've noticed is the demeanor of Tony White is much different than Satterfield. You can tell which unit has gained the upper hand in August. White, I wondered about early in camp, just body language, sort of the sense of confidence you're trying to get from him. Well, now he's you can sense confidence in White. Satterfield's a little more reserved. The unit that's had a better month is clearly the defense. Mm-hmm. And they've had the upper hand in both scrimmages. I'm excited to see the defense. They have veterans over there, and they're running a new system that I think can confuse people. If they run it well, I think it can confuse people weekly.
I think the back two levels of the defense, secondary and linebacker, especially how far linebackers come, to where maybe there were some questions there. I'm not too worried about it now. I mean, at all three of those spots, I think that they're fine with the level of talent they have, and then the secondary could still be the overall strength of the team. We'll see. It's no surprise the defensive line is going to dictate how good that defense actually is. But when you hear stories about Cam Lenhart's rise, Blaise Gunnarson's development, Nash Hutmacher becoming one of the leaders and voices of the team, along with Ty Robinson, that I think it, to at least some degree, eases some concerns about that group. And if they can just be good enough, I think that those next two levels are going to make that a stout defense all year.
I just want to know, like, how much they will rotate, like how they'll handle that in the game. 17 to 25 guys.
That's how much Rule said they're going to play.
But like how deep does it get down to? Like, we know 4 guys on the D line, Cam Lenhart being the fourth place, Gunnerson, Ty Robinson, and Nash Hutmacher. Where's Ruquan Buckley? Where's Kai Wallin factor in? Elijah Judy.
Wallin? Is that what we're saying?
Is it Wallin or Wallin? I've heard Sipple. I've kind of just
Kai Wallin.
I went full Jordan Ball with Kai Wallin. I don't know why I said it that way, but he said it that way once, and I'm like, Kai Wallin. I just saw Robbie go, are we going Wallin?
Wait a minute. All right.
It's not Wallin?
Yeah.
It's not Wallin?
I think it's Wallin.
I go Wallin. Anyway. Anyway, those are your guys. Right.
Judy, linebacker. Yeah. We know the Jacks. We know who the Jacks are for sure. MJ Sherman, Chief Borders,
Jamari Butler.
Those 3.
Yeah.
So the Mike and the Will, it's Henrich, it's Reimer, John Bullock. After that, does anybody else push in there?
Rule said there's 6 guys for the Mike and Will. I don't know who would be after those 3.
Yeah, I think they have guys. We just don't know who they are because we haven't heard anything about them.
But like, what does that mean? Is that 5? Is that 1 series, 2 series? Like, how much?
Mauga Clemens snaps where you're getting like 7 to 8 a game?
Could be.
Yeah, there's just, like, how does that go? In the secondary, I think we have a good handle. I know there's a couple freshmen, though, knocking on the door for playing time. Dwight Boodle, Ethan Nation. But I think Deshaun Singleton has been quite a story in camp. And I know we talked about him on your other show this morning, Sip. That could be a surprise riser on this roster.
Well, what I wish I had, I erred in this. I wish I had Rule's quotes in front of me from last night's radio show where he said, for a long time, Deshaun Singleton was just kind of a guy on the 2 deep. But now what Rule said, and I'm paraphrasing, he's become one of our better defenders. He said he's going to be a hard-hitting physical safety. Robin, you heard it. I mean, he's talking about Deshaun Singleton as a starter.
Yeah.
One of their better players.
Yeah, I was going to say the rise isn't just from like backup to starter, but to being one of their best defensive players on the roster. And that raised a lot of eyebrows to where we were hearing a little bit of that talk increase over the last maybe week or two of fall camp, but to hear Rule talk about him, not just what he said, but how he said it, and just like how excited the tone in his voice was, that catches your attention.
He said he met with him.
I mean, he's a no-brainer fixture.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He said he met with him and was blown away. They have those spring meetings. Maybe they had them in the summer too, but he met with him formally, Rule Singleton, and Rule said he was blown away, called Evan Cooper immediately and said, do I have a new favorite player on this team? Deshaun Singleton. Yeah, Singleton. Now, Singleton, when he walks in the room, gets your attention, right? They list him at 6'3". He looks 6'4"-ish
looks
to
like
me.
A dude.
Yeah, 210, big, rangy safety.
So last year, he was not. They thought he could win a job last year, and it ended up being Marquise Buford and Miles Farmer. And I think the previous staff brought him in to beat out one of those guys or to win a job. And Buford ended up being pretty good.
He wasn't going to beat out Buford.
So was he brought in to beat out Miles Farmer and it just didn't happen?
Perhaps.
Mm-hmm. And now clearly they're like, yeah, Miles Farmer is not here for many reasons, but
Singleton might be one of they feel, I don't think they feel like they're going to have a net loss there. And listen, Farmer had 73 tackles last year. He was the second leading tackler on the team. You lost a player there.
He missed as many. His tackle miss rate though on Pro Football Focus was one of the highest on the team,
especially earlier in the year.
In his early career,
he got better as the season went on.
They did.
Early in his career, he was missing like 25% of tackle opportunities.
I know when Bush took over the defense, there were some hard conversations about Farmer, whether they were going to keep playing him. And then they specialize, and I don't know the nuances of this, but they specialized his role, and he flourished. He adapted quickly to his new role to Bush's defense, and then became a locker room leader. Mm-hmm. So his story was pretty shaky, just like the program was shaky against Georgia Southern and Oklahoma. Then the coaching change was made. They changed his role up a little bit. And he took, and he had a good year.
Well, and Deshaun Singleton kind of fell victim to all the changes too. I mean, you fire Shenander, you fire Frost.
Well, they had their guys too,
and you just kind of get in this crosswire where they're not too interested in developing; they're just trying to survive.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
I mean, that's what like we're just trying to survive and advance. We're not really trying to worry about 2024 here or 2023. We're trying to make it to 2023. But all right, when we come back. Mailbag time. Abby Barmore not in. I will be handling the mailbag, gentlemen. So give me a chance here to get through that. But
I can hear the boos from here.
No, Abby. All right, when we come back, we'll do mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Time for the mailbag. But before we get to that, Steve Sipple, the mailbag brought to you by
Sean. It's brought to everybody by Larson Motors. If you're looking for a new vehicle, go for a new experience at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors is one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one location. Finding your Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram really has never been easier. Start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com. That's Larson with an O, motorgroup.com, or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people, real deals.
I think my favorite part of that advertisement is the pause before Hummer, and then just kind of like the goal line push when you just say, and Hummer. Like, I mean, you just...
Reggie Bush.
It's like third and one at the goal line, and you pause.
The Bush push.
And you just say, Hummer.
It's like Derrick Henry chopping his feet, then hitting the line, plowing into the goal line.
Yeah, with a big man.
I just envision you driving your Hummer down the road. All right, let's get into the mailbag. I've got the questions. Abby out today, but first question, is there a Husker defender that doesn't get a ton of press who you believe will shine this season? I think we've kind of hit on that. Deshaun Singleton is definitely in that camp. But I'm wondering if there's somebody else.
Rob?
Well, it's hard to say that they don't get a lot of press because we pretty much talk about everybody. You know who's kind of gotten forgotten? Corey Collier.
Yeah.
They don't even talk about him ever.
And we're projecting him to be a second team safety right now. So I think he's got a chance to play a much bigger role than I think some people are expecting, just because, he's got that experience as a Power 5 transfer, but also because I think he was handpicked by the staff and they like what he can bring to that position.
I'll just say I hope it's Judy. That's
good call.
Yeah, you hope it. It's been quiet on that front. Now, I've heard it's been quiet on that front on the field is why it's been quiet on that front from the coaches. There's a reason it's been quiet on that front. Now, maybe he's a game. Coaches would kill me for saying that. Like, he doesn't practice very well, but he's really good in games. Yeah, you seldom see that. But hopefully, when you see the game against Minnesota, Judy has about 2 tackles that and maybe one's behind the line of scrimmage, you'd feel a lot better about the defense.
I'm going to be the bad Big Red wrap-up second guess and say I piggyback off Sip and really agree with everything Sip said on Judy, which is rare.
I throw Kai Wallin in there too.
We might be in trouble on that. The more I think about it, I don't know why I'm saying.
No, that's what like when you're on Big Red wrap-up though, and we're on there, and there's two. They sometimes have two. There could be like a really good guy, and he just has awesome takes, and then the second guy, might be there, but a step back, and it's like, God, the guy just said everything perfectly, and then he'll say to piggyback off what he said, like.
Don't use the word piggyback
to kind of reiterate what Sip said. But all right, let's go. Question number 2. If they asked you guys in the media and just at large for your input on the renovations to the stadium, what would you like to see in Memorial Stadium?
Go.
From a fan standpoint, improved seating, seat backs. That'll probably require cutting down capacity, which at this rate, I don't know if that's as big of an issue as maybe it used to be. Improve the bathrooms. Let's maybe get away from the trough style and get some modernized bathrooms. From a media standpoint, let's get that elevator situation figured out. Getting up and down from field level to 6th floor in the press box is one of the most tedious things about a game day that we have. So maybe add a couple more elevators. Make a direct.
There you go.
Make a direct press elevator. How about that?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, the chairback discussion is complicated because the way the concrete's poured and the way the rows are, you can't just, the way it's currently set up, you can't just put the chairbacks in because there will not be enough room.
No.
So they would almost have to repurpose and like re-pour concrete and shape. Putting chairbacks in will be a Herculean task to get it done and do it right. I do believe that's what's going to happen over time. South end zone is the first priority. Nothing has been done to South end zone since it was built. It is no concourses, no concessions, no restrooms. It's just a set of bleachers with anthill ramps that go up and down, and that's it.
Yeah, it will change.
They've got to get that fixed. The fact that thing fills up every game, when you consider how hot it can be, how hard it can be to get to your seat, it's amazing.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what Rob said, the chairback thing is really striking to me. Now you guys, I don't go to football games. I go cover them in a press box, so I don't go as a fan. But I did go. I remember when we went to Big 12 Media Day, Big 12, back in the Big 12 days, and they gave us a free tour of Jerry's World. Remember that?
Right when it opened.
Right when it opened. And I was struck by that, how comfortable the chairbacks were and how beautiful that would be, watching a game in your own seat.
Cup holders,
the little space. It's your seat. And there are comfortable seats. So, the chairback thing has always intrigued me. If they could pull it
Think
off.
how many, just because there's no cup holders, obviously, in those benches. Just how many people probably kick their drinks. So, and you see it when you're walking. Sometimes under the stadium, when you'll be walking, all of a sudden, it's like
it's raining.
It's like raining Pepsi.
Not a cloud in the sky.
Let's hope it's Pepsi.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
God. It's Pepsi.
You go to the Memorial Stadium horse trough bathrooms, though, and those stalls turn into like bars. Like guys go in there, close the door, they're mixing drinks up, and then you'll see about 20 loose bottles being kicked out of the bathroom.
Like a hotel mini bar in every stall.
Those shooters.
Oh, yeah.
Shooters seem pretty popular. Right?
They've got to get alcohol in the stadium at some
Fireball
point too.
shooters.
I don't know how and when that all happens, but they are serving alcohol for the volleyball game. So volleyball day in Nebraska, because of the concert, they'll have alcohol in there, and it's, so that will be interesting to see how that goes, because it's not really a football crowd, but it's going to be bigger.
Sure, it won't be quite the scene it was for Garth Brooks. I don't know if you remember that one well. It was basically just anarchy. Guys were just like dropping pallets of beers and saying you have to pay a tip if you want a beer, and taking cash only. It's
like being in just some rough.
Yeah, it was like some third world market, where you're like trying to barter with a guy for a 20-ounce Busch Light.
They were 25 ounces.
25. Yes, excuse me. I want to shortchange that.
But I think somebody told me they did 128,000.
What? Sold that many beers
they're double beers. So really, they did over 250,000 cans of beer at that Garth Brooks concert.
Pretty impressive.
All right. Final question. What is your favorite sports team / player documentary? And I don't know. I mean,
Hoop Dreams.
Yeah, Hoop Dreams is probably my favorite. I think it's the all-time best documentary ever because of the work those guys did to stay with those kids and capture that story. It was really a true reality of how hard it is, to make it. And then, what some of these kids in the inner city, they get wined and dined to go to a nice private school. And it worked out for one guy. And then the other guy didn't work out. And all of a sudden he had a tuition bill that couldn't be paid. I mean, just the way they captured that whole story and from really 8th grade to college was amazing.
And, it's hard to pick with the 30 for 30s. There's been so many good ones with that. The Last Chance U's, especially the first season was incredible. I love that show so much. And then, they've kind of gotten worse over the years, but those, when it takes you inside the sport and the actual operations, where you actually get to see what these guys deal with beyond football and just what their lives are like. That's the stuff that really captivates me.
Okay, I'm glad you guys didn't mention. I can say Jordan Rules, right?
Oh, the ESPN.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll ever see a better one than
that was really good.
Yeah, and what it did to me was drive home the point. You always get the Jordan LeBron debate, but after that, I saw that show. It sort of reignited my love for Jordan, and at the same time, it was, oh really? We're gonna say LeBron's as good as this guy? No.
One thing about though, Jordan had total creative control over that. So they weren't going to do anything but paint him in the best possible light. So
it wasn't difficult.
Take it for what it's worth. I know they had a lot of material to work with.
Right.
Just saying.
Yeah, that was. I mean, the fact that they had all that footage, they were even his footage with those security guards.
Who's a tougher guy mentally, Jordan or LeBron? Come on, my God. I mean, Jordan by a long
LeBron, is
way.
he coming back again?
Yeah, he's definitely coming back.
How many more?
LeBron's fine. He's a top 10 player all time.
10?
10. I'm not going. He might be 5. I mean, come on. I mean, you can get him in the top 5, but it's not. I don't think it's unanimously agreed that he's a top 5 player.
We're going to need another segment for this.
On this note, we're going to come back. We'll close the show.
I'm getting into it
with some week 0 college football discussion and also Jim Harbaugh's suspension. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, having fun as we always do. That's people always tell me. They're like, God, you guys have fun. And we do. We like each other. We all kind of know our subject well, I feel like, and we have fun talking about it.
Yeah, I talked over you guys a little bit today. I'll hear that.
It's because it got spirited.
Yeah.
Your team, Ted Carter, not a big deal.
Yeah.
I am not that team. I am team Ted Carter is a big deal, the news, but it's the sort of negative doom and gloom discussion that I'm confused by. I am big story. It's a big story. I don't understand necessarily how negative it got quickly.
All right, let's get into week 0 football. We get a light slate of games this weekend. Not a great slate, but we get games. Navy versus Notre Dame and Steve Sipple's Paradise, Aviva Stadium.
A year ago, we were there.
It's a 1:30 kick.
That's a beautiful place.
I wasn't even working with you guys yet out there. That was the weird part about that trip.
Yep.
You weren't technically working with us.
I was your friends.
Yeah.
Just came along on the trip.
You guys enjoyed that trip as much as I did, if not more. I'd say more after about 11:30
I had a
every
really good
night.
time,
You
so.
enjoyed it more,
I had a really good time.
right? You guys were down there.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was the beauty of that trip. You'd get done, and you had the evening to.
Well, and the time change too. What was the time change difference? 6 or 7 hours ahead. So we'd be getting done with our post-practice stuff in late morning, early afternoon. It'd be 6 a.m. back home. So no rush to get anything up. It was just the perfect setup. Take me back.
Yeah. I had to do my KFAB reports, and the 5 p.m. Omaha report was at 11 o'clock in Ireland. So I'd be on the air at 11 o'clock in the Temple Bar District.
In the Temple Bar District. I see.
I had there were always beggars and homeless people out there. and I'd be on my phone alone, kind of walking away, and you're just like prime target. And I had 2 different reports where literally a guy kept asking me for money while I was on the air. And I said, "Hey, say hello to Omaha Radio."
Oh boy.
The guy goes, "Hello, Omaha." And he's like, "Now give me $1." I'm like,
you asked him to do
all
something.
right. Back to week 0. Hey, UTEP, Jacksonville State. You know why you want to watch that game?
I don't. Why?
Logan Smothers.
Whoa.
So Logan Smothers will be on CBS Sports at 4:30 playing UTEP.
Did he win the job?
I'd assume so. He came for Rich Rodriguez.
Better have.
Okay.
You'll have UMass, New Mexico State. I think the other somewhat interesting game for us is Ohio versus San Diego State. You got the Tim Albin, somewhat of a Nebraska connection there. And those are 2 respectable non-Power 5 programs squaring off. Hawaii will travel to Vanderbilt. So we got football in Nashville. And then the nightcap. But this game's on Pac-12 Network, so no one's going to be able to watch it. San Jose State, USC.
Yeah, those aren't great. Now, the Vandy looks like a bowl team to me. They'll handle Hawaii.
17-point favorites.
Yeah, there you go. They'll handle Hawaii. Vandy looks like a 7-win type Vandy team. Jerry Kill's always sort of interesting to people, I think, and he's coaching at New Mexico State.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Jerry Kill's the head coach at New Mexico State. No, you're right, though. New Mexico State, UMass is not particularly appealing, but I keep an eye on what Kill's doing.
He doesn't have.
Yeah. So there you go.
UTEP, Jacksonville State, basically a pick 'em. It's UTEP by 1. USC is a 30.5-point favorite over San Jose State. That's a lot of points for week 1.
Yeah, USC is a consensus top 10 and probably top 18. Caleb Williams, obviously. What I'd watch in that game is what the USC defense looks like. Suspect at the end of last season.
And nothing is on till 1:30. So the first kickoff is at 1:30.
Grand.
So get your work done in the morning, and then you can turn on Notre Dame Navy on NBC at 1:30.
Just look at Aviva.
Oh yeah, see Aviva again.
Just appreciate that grass.
Yeah,
free beer.
Oh, if they could only be so lucky.
Remember the walk to Aviva was so pleasant through the neighborhoods of Dublin.
It's awesome.
Through the old neighborhoods of Dublin.
I mean, it reminded you of like Rosenblatt Stadium. That was like nestled in the neighborhood.
That's a great, Sean. God bless you. That is a tremendous comparison. That it is. A little more nestled, though.
Yeah, and
God, do you remember that on that one? I'm sorry, in that one end zone, literally, the house was probably 8 feet from the stadium.
Yeah,
like you could almost just reach your 7-iron and touch the stadium.
Yeah, and then finally, I do want to close on this before we wrap the show. Jim Harbaugh, they've negotiated a 3-game suspension for Harbaugh, so he will miss the entire non-conference slate. He will not miss any Big Ten games, meaning Rutgers and Nebraska, their first 2 Big Ten games.
This is what this was Michigan trying to appease the NCAA with this self-imposed penalty. This is far from over.
I was going to say, do you think it's enough?
No, I mean, the case is far from over. It'll probably be ultimately settled probably in the spring of 2024. I think this is Michigan just trying to do something maybe to reduce penalty.
Act like they're being proactive about it.
Yeah.
By having them not miss a single conference game and 3 scrub non-conference opener games. See how that goes.
I mean, I hate to say it's insignificant. It's the head coach gone for 3 games. I mean,
yeah, but they're going to be like 30-point favorites in all those games. So they should be okay.
Absolutely. They should be.
All right. Lots to keep up with this weekend. We'll get a depth chart. Lots more to come. Next week, we'll bring you game week coverage as we get ready for Nebraska, Minnesota. Make sure you check out HuskerOnline.com. We got a great special for any new member. Get your first month for $1 or $75 will get you a year. That's 25% off the annual price.